Hi, everybody. We are so excited to be on Quantum U Talk Show once again, Ashley, myself, and today we are with Peter Panegore, and this time I'm telling you, saying your name right. So we've had Peter on one of our private sessions before, and it's just been so enriching. And I just want to say that a lot of the members were very touched, and a few things you said that really cleared things out for them too. So it has really, really been wonderful to have you here. So I'm just excited, and we're going to kick off with some questions for you, Peter. I know Ashley's going to just ask something for you and then just let you introduce yourself, and then we could just open up for you.
Sounds great. Thanks. Hi, Ashley.
Hi. Thanks for being with us again. This is awesome. Again, like I said, I could talk to you all day. I love everything you have to say. So we'll let you introduce yourself, but I guess, I think everybody wants to know, because we all have this kind of fear of the unknown and curiosity of the unknown. So tell us about your experience when you first died.
I went to a place of nothingness. I left. I was ice climbing. I froze to death. I'm going to pick highlights.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I resisted death, and I was swallowed up by an intelligence that came to collect me and carried me off against my will initially. But as soon as I was inside it, I was in comfort. And it carried me a great distance across vast darkness and left me inside of a nothingness where there were no things, no thingness and timelessness and all time. And I was an orb of life, of energy, of consciousness. And my eye could see in every direction at once. It was one big single eye with 10,000 pupils and wasn't separated from my thinking. My thinking was speeding, unencumbered by my brain at a rate of no words and comprehension. It was experience, understand. And what I understood was this was my truest self, the true me, and that what I had been on earth was not me. This was my everlasting me. But I didn't know where I was. But I was also in comfort. The comfort that I was carried with maintained itself into this vast space. And it was emptiness and fullness. I was alone, unafraid, and a portal entered and opened in front of me, close by me, far from infinity. I could see into infinity, but not infinity. And in every direction, and particularly in one direction. But maybe that was all direction at once. So hard to tell. Everything is metaphor. So this light opened in front of me and called me with a compulsion inside myself for its beauty's sake. And it was a flow of energy that was solid and transparent and translucent, and I could see all layers all at once and see through it into a tunnel that went much deeper into infinity, but I don't know where it went. It ended in darkness. And I was compulsed to touch this love and touched it, and it flowed into me, and all these things happened in a quick sequence. And I'll stop there to see if timing, I don't want to run over time. Am I good? Keep going?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I keep going. I think that's really
okay. So I touched this and it entered into me, and I ended up in a timeless sequence, which is really a contradiction. It's a paradox. I can't explain to you which came first. They all happened at the same time. There was a revealing of myself, and the revealing of myself came with the presence of the voice that was, I understood that the nothingness I was in was the voice with a capital V, but it was also right next to me and inside of me, but I couldn't see it. I could see everything else, but I couldn't see it. And it spoke inside me and it called my name, but it wasn't my human name. My human name is the temporary thing that I have along with the lease I live in. And the soul name was the origin of my being. I saw the origin of myself created not just in timeless history. My existence had been everlasting, but not eternal. I had been called into being by name, by breath, but the name was unpronounceable, but it was also immediate. I was also immediately being created. There was no separation between my long ago origin and the immediacy of my being alive because the light made me so. And I knew that I had lived other lives because I saw them. I saw into some of them, but I also saw that the largesse, the largeness of the largessness that comes from the divine that made me everlasting and elongated over much time. This self was so much bigger than any of the individual incarnations. The incarnations were miniature, and the direction of my orientation was to the soul level, not to the incarnational level. And then I went through a knowing. The voice said to me, I am creator. You are created. No language, impression. It wasn't a word that said I'm creator. I got shown creator. I got shown my creaturehood. And my creaturehood just wasn't my physical fingers. It was my soul. This is the truth of myself. And I knew that I was known by the knower with a capital K. And I understood that nothing of my human life, so on the human level, I knew nothing of my human life was hidden. Everything was revealed. I was fully and completely known, and I'd been fully and completely known the entire time my eyes had been opened as a birthed baby. From that moment forward, there was a record of myself and the wounds I experienced, my life review, unlike other near-death experience reviewers, life reviews. Mine was the wounds that I gave away, which brought me into a hell of being inside of and experiencing from the point of view of each individual who I hurt while I was hurting them in my life, simultaneously experiencing my interior world of the pain I wanted to give them. And the disproportion of my desire to cause pain and the amount of pain that was given in the bulb of love was guilt producing inside of me. I judged myself in relationship to the pain that I caused and the truth of love. I wasn't judged. I judged my own self in this three-way comparison. And simultaneously, I saw humanity's equality of human, we call sinfulness, I call existence. We have no control over the code metaphor of the universal server in the cloud. It is what it is, and I'm a human being inside of it. I had responsibility for the wounds that I gave away, so I went through a divine fire of purgative love. The love itself burned away, showed me myself, and what's the word they use? Evaporated. That's not even evaporation, but because there's still residue from that. There was no residue left from this. It was completely cleansed for me by this divine fire of love. And what seemed to me to be the love that I heard was the same love that I'd been given in life. There was this reflection between the two and a connection between them. And so all the love that had been given to me and all the love I gave away in my life was somehow made my ear of my soul receptive to the sound, the soundless voice of love spoken inside me. And when I turned my orientation toward it, instead of myself, I was infilled with an expansion of love and beauty, joy, truth, understanding, knowledge, bliss, all the 99 Islamic names of God and every name of love that you can imagine. Goodness, paradise, adoration, awe, understanding, knowledge, anything I wanted to know. And there was lots I wanted to know. I knew as soon as I thought, I want to know this, I knew this. Like this, my orientation became universal in size of understanding, in cosmology and astronomy and all the origin of life itself. And then I felt like if there was this little tiny bit of one more drop of this, any of these facets of love. Okay, so all of these things I described, we experienced them as facets in the world: compassion, understanding, know there, all one thing. All one thing. And I felt as if this oneness, if I had one more molecule of oneness, I would have obliterated back into all of this and more. But there would be no there'd be no self left. So then I contracted and I said, "Am I dead?" And the voice said, "Yes, you're dead." And I said, "I can't die now." And the voice said, "Why not? It's time for you to come home." I said, "My folks lost a child to runaway, felt like abandonment, damaged my family." And I was then pulled across the length and breadth and depth and interdimensionality of heaven to the edge of where heaven ended in its eternity and our universe began in live time. So it was sort of like if I had a head, I was sticking it out through this wall, but it was more like a fog, where fog begins, but not in a sharp line, but as a gradual thing, but also a sharp line. I mean, because it's crazy. There's all the different. It's so. Anyway, I saw all of the universe and I saw all of humanity, and inside of every human being, I saw divine light and love and a foam covering all the earth, and I understood by revelation that love is this much universe upon universe in size, larger than that, past, present, and always. Love, eternal, pointed right at me, pointed right at every single human being. I felt as if I was the prodigal child come home, the most precious, most special, most important being that ever was a being. And I had seen the universe, but I also could see that same particularity of belovedness inside of every living human being. Only they were blind to what I could see. I had a heaven's view, and the whole universe was somehow veiled as well. It was not as obvious in its presentation, but the connection between the earth's veil and the universal veil was in the very material creation of its being. It was love underneath it, love within it, love supporting it, love making it real, but this layer of brokenness. And I saw my parents' faces and I saw their lives from beginning to end in the suffering they would endure. And then I saw their faces and their lives beginning to end and the suffering they wouldn't endure. And the first was the suffering they would endure should I come home. This invitation kept coming to me. This revelation of love was the most desirous thing I'd ever experienced. The eternal nature of love was so overwhelming that it reoriented my soul, not my body. It reoriented my whole self toward it. And then it showed me my suffering parents were I to die, and then it showed me my suffering parents were I to live. And I saw my parents end life in this universal love, in the way that I saw everyone's end life in this universal love in the same place I was. And I understood the length of my life was the snap of a finger. of a human life is no time at all. And if I wait a snap of a finger, my parents' suffering will be over. So why don't you just come home now? But I asked, if I go back, can I come back here? Seeing, having been shown, given a choice, live or don't live. And I chose to ask if I could come back for my parents. And so that's what I did. I asked, and God said, I want you to stay. Welcome is here. I said, can I come back to this divine understanding, this heaven, but also this knowledge, this experience of this love that is so expansive, it's inexplicable. I can't tell you. If all of the human love I've ever experienced in my life is put into a pile, it compares with beauty in disproportion to the unlimited nature of the divine, which is also beauty. And it's all there is here of value is this love. And that's what the divine self is, which is what we are. And so when we love in all these different ways, all these different people that we love in our lives, and it feels a little different from this person to that person, that's because everything here is fragmented. Even love gets refracted through this cracked sort of prism, this crystal that reflects lights and refracts it and breaks it into all these electromagnetic waves that are, the scale is, from X-ray to whatever at the other end. This, I'm sorry.
No, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Sorry.
We ask you about to verbalize love, but I mean, we're both just sitting here going, oh, this is so beautiful. I think it must be very difficult to express perfect love without the fracture, the fragmented parts. And this is, I think our purpose is to know love, to know that we are love. And this is such a beautiful, it's just, your description is just so beautiful. And I'm sure it will just make such an impact on anybody hearing it. So I think I'm going to ask you the other question, because I can say to you, verbalize your experience with love, but I think you were actually doing that. So I thank you so much. It was just beautiful, the best you could. So how excited were you to die the second time? I know you died a second time. And what is it like to be so excited about death? I think for most people we think, no, because we all just don't want to die, and yet there's such.
I didn't the first time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. But the second time, because of what I just described to you, that a portion of that came back with me. Enough came back with me to make me only want that. And that all love that I experience here is beautiful, but less than. It's a conflict of non-attachment. So there's this level of attachment to the other side that leaves me somehow loving all the people who I love, but only through this other lens. Even though it comes to me, I love my wife differently than I love my kids, than I loved my dog. All of those things are love, but this single lens is always there. And it's disconcerting. It has been. I'm better adjusted now 40 years later, but those first 20 years, especially the first 10 years, I loved everybody. There was this indiscriminate nature of, and it got me in trouble. I can't tell you how many times, and in so many different ways. So the second time I died, I'd been praying for my death from the day that I died to the day that I died. Okay, so I never thought of that to this moment, but that's totally true. Okay, so there's a beginning and an end there. And I went to yoga class and I had a heart attack, and I self-diagnosed because I'd been an ambulance attendant for a while, and I didn't think it was going to be bad. I don't know why, because it killed people in my family, but I was fit. You know, I ran 5K the day before. And so I left the class and I lay down in the grass right outside in the morning dew, and I'm lying there and I'm thinking, oh, there's a heart attack. But I'm lying there thinking, I really didn't realize today would be my day. Today I get to go home. So I had this sense of, finally, I'd been praying for this. When I was a younger person, I would go to this monastery, and once I told my spiritual director, Theophane, that I'd been praying for my death, and he said, "Oh, don't you know that in the monastery, those who pray for their early death, get to live the longest?" And so I had already by that point been praying every single day for 10 years, and I couldn't stop myself after. And I told my wife before many times, the first legitimate chance I get to die, I'm going to go home. But then while I was in my death experience, I realized that I was really kind of needed here by my daughter and my granddaughter and my son. And without asking permission this time, I decided, because I hadn't gone very far. I was so close to my body that I think I must have had some level of autonomy, because this time I didn't ask permission. I just kind of told them, I'm the same angel, I'm staying. And I turned away and went in. I guess I felt like I was taking a risk. I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn my back on you and kind of go back inside to be my granddaughter needed a surrogate father who was going to be present in her life to help change the direction of her life, and that was the only person that was going to be was me. And she had just been born. She was less than a year old. So here I am, and each time this happened to me, I've become a different person after. This time I became more so what I already knew that I was. And so that launched, after my TV show ended, I wondered what to do. But all this happened at the same time that my book came out. It was all within like a month, all in a heart attack. Book comes out, TV station says, your show's going to slowly go away in a year and a half. But I came out of this thing and I kept my secret about my ND, my first one, for most of my life, except for a few people. But this time I'm in my hospital bed and my family's there, and I say, hey, you're not going to believe what happened. I died. And my son said to me, Dad, the doctor said you were going to die. The doctor in my town told him to say goodbye to me, because I was already outside my golden hour by the time I was loaded on the gurney for the 1.5-hour drive to the catheterization lab. And so the doc told him to say goodbye to me. And I said, well, Andy, it was you leaning into me and looking in my eyes and holding my hand that was what brought me here back again. I saw into him, and I saw into the life, I saw into his life, and I saw into my daughter's life, and I saw into my granddaughter's life. And knowing that the length of life is this fast, nowadays, it's not so much to my end. Third time's a charm, maybe. Even if I live to 90.
I think you make a really interesting discussion about coming back and choosing to come back. And I think that I've never experienced somebody very, very close to me passing on, my grandparents and things like that. But I think sometimes when people die around us, we get sad for them. And that's why it's sometimes hard the grieving process may be a little hard. And so I think you lend some comfort to people that there is a choice. And so, we're sad for us because in that blink of an eye, we feel the pain of separation from whomever has passed. But, there's some solace in knowing that when they have really gone, the decision's been made by them.
I'm not sure that's always true.
Okay.
Because I've been to a lot of death in my life, and as a pastor, and just as a human being, part of my karma has been to be at the scenes of lots of accidents,
Right.
and because of what happened to me, I'm always stopping. So my dad just died. My dad I came back for just died, and just weeks ago. And when I was dead, I saw his well-being. I saw it. I knew, and I didn't bring that part back with me until he died. And he came to me in a dream, and he showed me his happiness and that he's fine. And then I remembered that I had already seen it. So there is this, and that's an experience that lots of people have. According to Marjorie Willicott and the paper that she gave at the International Association for Near-Death Studies conference this year, in that paper, she cited 45% of those surveyed, in say 350 people-ish, had an after-death communication, an after-death visitation of a deceased loved one. And so in the midst, a blessing that can come from that, the blessing that comes from that really is that the loss of your beloved, especially if it's your spouse of say 70 years, can be shifted a degree, a single degree, that now that death, although we grieve for those we've lost, and somehow out of our selfishness, because we love them so much and we no longer have them here, that knowledge that they're still alive changes grief to mourning. It allows space for eternity in relationship and love. And that seems to be a universal, I don't want to say universal anymore, a worldwide experience in all these different cultures. Mourning is, human beings are built for loss. That's what we have. We're either the one who leaves or the one who stays. And either way, for the one who stays, the truth is that wound comes, and grief is this other side of love. But if you build your single eye inside and aim your heart at heaven, you begin to understand that human life is an impermanence in itself, beautiful and painful, but leading to, the more you die before you die, then when you die, you don't die, to almost quote a quote from Greece.
Love that. That's
My
really
brother,
cool.
sorry, Ashley, my brother had, my younger brother passed, my older brother passed, but my younger brother passed 14 years ago. Suddenly, and my sister-in-law, those days, I had no awareness like we do today, and he visited my sister-in-law twice, and as you just said, it gave a different, yes, you grieve, but there's hope. And Ashley and I, and Ashley especially, is also just, we're so aware that life is, everybody is alive. Whether your body goes on or not, you're still alive. And those people that have passed on are still alive. And I think what's happening in the world is our consciousness changing to stop feeling the sting of separation. And I loved how you touched on oneness. The awareness, and you speaking about this, and a lot of more people, and us just knowing it in the inside of us, there's a oneness. And even if we have someone passed on, there's still a connection with them. And that is, I don't know if you can elaborate on that, Peter or Ashley. I know you maybe wanted to say something about that too, Ashley, your understanding.
Yeah, I regularly, receive communication on behalf of others from people who have passed. And I'm opening more and more to that. And just, there's always a healing message, right? There's a, for whatever reason. And it's really cool. And yeah, just the permanence of our soul is such, there's hope there.
Oh, I'm sorry. The healing message. Can you say more about that?
Yeah. So, I think that they call it parapsychology. People call it a myriad of things. And I think it's just, we all have the ability to tune into the spirit and have the perceptive, with our mind ability for what is needed to be communicated there, if you want to receive that. And so, I think that there are people who predict the future. I don't like that, because I do think that there are a million possibilities that could take place. And so the predictive aspect, I think, can be dangerous, unless it's there for help. But even still, I think it's dangerous. But I think that, receiving a message on behalf of somebody who has passed to someone who's still here, there's always a message of, like you said about your dad in the dream, he came to you directly. And I think a lot of people experience that, as you just said in that essay. And I think people can, like myself, receive that message and pass it on. But there's always an aspect of healing and wholeness in there for the person who's still here. It's never about the person who's passed. It's always about the person who's still here.
Yes, yes, me too. Me too. Me too. I was hoping to hear exactly what you just said, because now I got so involved. I lost the question that you were asking me, Ronelle.
It's okay. You can carry on talking. We just
okay
with it. I think there was. I think I wasn't actually asking you anymore. Saying what?
Oh, I was going to comment on something.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so I could do that. So this healing nature that Ashley talks about is experiential, and it's always the message, and it's never exactly like Ashley said. It's never about the person who's dead. It's about communicating the truth of well-beingness to the one who lives for a sense of healing or reorientation in their grief. And it seems to be, according to this little survey I did, this anecdotal survey after my TV ended, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I started preaching in churches around New England for a year and a half. And I would ask, because I was there because I was a near-death experiencer, and I would ask before my sermon, who here has ever had an after-death communication? And nobody would raise their hand until I raised my hand. And then 50% of every congregation, this is anecdotal, 50% of every congregation raised their hand. I said, who here's ever told anybody? Everybody had told somebody, maybe one, maybe two. Who's ever talked about it in church? Zero. Nobody. There was an outlier church where 2 people had, but there, among all of the churches, other than that one church where a couple of people had, thank God for that, kind of being there in the forefront of talking about after-death communication, because it's a universal mystical experience. And it's mystical because it leaves you with noetic knowledge. And the noetic knowledge is this unspoken ability, because it's ineffable, to express the truth of the lesson that you learn in the expression of the healing. You know this in the core of your soul. It changes your life every day going forward, because now love is eternal. But when you talk about it, it sounds pretty weak. Oh yes, love changed my what? That doesn't. So nobody talks about it because everybody's afraid, because it can't be communicated. Yeah. And so
that's an interesting point, Peter, because I feel like when I communicate these messages that I receive, the person I'm speaking with And it has nothing to do with me. I'm overtaken with such a love for them while I'm communicating the message that it's almost hard for me to say it without being brought to tears, because it's so much for your human body to and be able to tolerate.
To
It's too
endure.
much.
It's too much. That was
Yeah.
the same. So that's the same thing, a very similar thing to what I was talking about. When one more drop of bliss and I would have obliterated, it's too much energy. And it's the same. The human body can only take so much. I mean, that's why I think this is the reason why near-death experiencers bring back so little knowledge compared to what we knew on the other side. It's just too much. Can't fit. Can't put it in there.
Yeah.
It'll break. You'll break another human god if you energize them too much. Look, you broke that one down there.
I would
Sorry, I was just looking down.
That was great.
ask you a question, like just that you expand a little bit. One day is 1,000 years, is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years like one day. The blink of the eye moment you were speaking about. So to encourage people out there, elaborate a little bit on that, because I think we've made so much of this life to hold on to this life, do everything to insure ourselves, do so much in the physical to ensure health and longevity, etc. There's nothing wrong with that, but the focus too much on that and hold on to the life for dear life, or this world for dear life, and yet we have eternity, and this is only a minute aspect, like you said, minute aspect. So if you want to just kind of speak about that for a moment.
Yeah, I think that all of that grows out of the blindness to what it is to be dead. I think that the fear of dying and the desire, there is this beautiful human compassion that arises from our hearts, I guess, but it's tribal in that we will save each other's lives. We do that. We say, for hundreds of thousands of years, we've been saving each other's lives from the first hominid group together. And so there's this thing where we protect life because it's good for us, but also because there's relationship there. So I see a structure to that. I see like a purposeful evolutionary thing there that's important. But the blindness of reality, of this impermanence, of this Maya, of this illusion, the blindness here, the foam that covers the log in everybody's eye in everybody's eyes, both of them, is this veil that makes it impenetrable to see the golden light that is within each of us. And you can argue, people say, well, why is it made that way? Well, without limitedness, there would be no existence. You wouldn't get this world without that thing. And so the ideal is to find that inside yourself so that you can see it in everything. And this in the Bible, I think that and I would check my numbers, but I think that there are 9 near-death experiences recounted if you count Jesus. There's like 3, I think so, 3 in the Hebrew scriptures, 3 in the Gospels, and 3, if you count Jesus, and 3 in the epistles. I think that's the way it breaks down. So there are 9 discussions of people being brought back. There were 9 and over thousands of years, and they were so important that they got written into the book. And one of the things that's very different now, very, very different. There's always been near-death experience, especially in battle or in illness. I mean, there's always been a few here and there. Mountaineering. I think there's a famous essay written about a mountaineer from 150 years ago, and he describes his near-death experience. So I think it's the earliest written version of one by an autobiography. But never before in the history of the world has medical science advanced to the place where they've been raising the dead by tens of millions. Another researcher at IANS, a guy named Pim van Lommel, some years ago, And these IANDS is a major, it's the major global scientific-based university, peer-reviewed and near-death experience science center. And in his research, he estimated 10 to 20 million Americans. Extrapolate that around the globe. So for the last 60 years, cardiac care has been expanding and improving and pulling people back on street corners and ambulances and ORs and sending back, making mystics. All these near-death experiencers, they're all sort of manufactured. Lots of them anyway. Some are accidental like mine. Many are manufactured. And so for the first time in the history of the world, there's a shocking, near-death experience is a shocking form of spiritual growth. And it's shocking because it can happen to anyone. Atheist, lots of spiritual growth happens to people of faith. It happens to atheists as well. But if you're in the context of it, it's because you have a seeker's heart. And so then you have a mystical experience, you have an after-death experience, which is, or a visitation from the dead is shocking too, but not as shocking as, because you're still alive. It's not as shocking as a near-death experience where there's no connection at all anymore. It's like severed, it's severed. And then you get shoved back in your body again with this lesson, and it's really hard to keep your mouth shut. Lots of us have kept our mouths shut because of societal pressure, but it's hard to live with it because it has a voice of its own inside yourself and it changes perspective. So even if your mouth is shut about it, you can't help but live through it, live the expression of it in your daily choices. And sometimes that becomes obvious and sometimes you can hide it. But society in general has not been friendly to mystical experience for thousands of years cross-culturally. And now there's an army of us, little nodes of light implanted in tens of millions of hearts around the world, that to the point where the IANDS, International Association for Near-Death Studies group in Israel, is talking to the IANDS group in Iran because centuries of hate don't exist in this realm, because there is no history like that. There's only this divine self. And so this is a game changer potentially for the global awakening movement that everybody's been waiting for thousands and thousands of years. No, it's tomorrow. No, it's tomorrow. It's next week. But this thing has already been underway. This is not like we're waiting for this. It's 60 years in advancement. And so for the first, and with the form of social media, what we're doing right here, we are all talking to each other, and not only among the near-death experiencers, but the near-death experiencers talking to the mystical experiencers of other kinds who are natural born into humanity. Remember, 45 to 50% of people have a mystical experience of the visitation from the dead. We are everywhere, but we've been repressed. And so now we have this, because of the near-death experiencers are speaking out, books and movies, and we're raising the truth that death is not the end. And so we don't need to, I wish that my father had been able to die when he wanted to die, so he would not have suffered so many months of misery. Well, from the day that he began his own chant, something like, "Why won't you let me die, you bat?" If we help animals along, we don't help humans. And I don't think we help humans because it's such a murky thing. There's a lot of abuse that could happen with it, a lot of darkness. But one thing that isn't darkness, that won't happen with it, is that when the door opens on the interior, your heart is aimed at light and love, you are free. You are free from suffering and become who you've always been before you came here in the first place. And so I think we have an opportunity to nudge the planet in the 21st century as these cataclysms come crashing down on us. And I'm going to relate some good news here that I read in one of the science feeds I read. There is a bacteria that is a collection. how did the scientists say it? They examined all this plastic in a big, huge, like waste dump somewhere, and they found bacteria eating it. And so that there are organisms evolving that will consume plastic, which is like the best news I heard all week. So thank God for that. And they just discovered this. They don't know much about it. There's a lot to learn about it, but it's apparently there. But short of that little bit of good news, we're in trouble as a planet with our cataclysms coming, and social and political and environmental. But we're an army of people of love now. And we have an opportunity with science to eliminate literalism in all of its forms, and to, when finally the more evolved species in the universe reveal themselves fully to all humanity, and we realize that our planet is one among many, even as the Pentagon has done so, and the United States Navy has done so publicly in the last few years with video and research groups. We're not alone in the universe. We need to end that mythology, that false belief of our specialness. It's part of our anthropomorphism. Everything we see is us, so we own it and we can use it however we want to. We anthropomorphized the planet. And all grown out of myth, and not myth like Joseph Campbell myth, but like stories that tell truth but aren't true, and we believed that they were literal. I talk too much. Am I going on too much? I went way down this hole.
It's so interesting. Like I say, I can sit here and talk to you all day. I think that, I just love your spirit and the this amazing awareness that we're not here to be a body mind. We're here for a spiritual experience, and we're here to reconcile all of the pain and suffering and joy and all of that back to love. That's what we're here to do, and we're here to expand that.
Heaven here now. Heaven here now.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Heaven on earth. There's no separation. So
no, where's that come from? Ashley, where's that come from? It comes from the individual person.
Yeah.
Each person, and in collective and in community, because this thing is bigger than us.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt, but I
love that. You're absolutely right. And I think that the evolution of what I've seen that I'm here to do, if I can feel so special, is just to, we're all here for a purpose, right? And we're all one, right? So this illusion of a body mind is somewhat silly at some point, right? But we're here to just expand love, as you say, and expand that message in any way we can. So
yeah, as a friend of mine wrote a book, it was called Cosmic Cries from St. Omer, and he said Jesus took a boat, but he could also fly across the water. And I think that sums it up.
That sums it up. I love that.
Yes, and that really made me so excited, because it just brought into the total consciousness of, yes, we're in this material realm, but we mostly spirit. So we use the elements and learn from it to navigate. And like Ashley also said, this consciousness of love in oneness to shift the world, because how we see others is generally how we think of ourselves, and just see people in love. And I love what you said before also about God is in every single one, and everyone whose near-death experience I heard is exactly what you said. There's no judgment except for what we judge in ourselves, first of all, and we see that. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything, Ashley, before we just tell everybody where you can find Peter, because he's quite well known all over YouTube, and we can also where you can go, because he's also a coach, and that's awesome.
I think that's kind of what exactly. I think you had the perfect segue right now, Peter. If you want to provide people with a way to get in touch with you and get your material, they'd love to. I'm certain.
Thanks. It's peterpanegore.love. My website, and all the links are there. And I love to talk to you. I try to keep open lines of communication. I book appointments. It's actually getting to the point where it's I'm thinking, oh, there's going to come a day where it's going to be overwhelming, but that's what I've been aiming for, because this thing doesn't belong to anyone. It's shared by everyone. And so there isn't this hierarchy. There's only equality of light. And so the only hierarchy there is the divine light itself. And as each individual unveils that inside themselves, as Jesus was teaching us to do, make your body full of light, make your eyes single, take your basket out from under your bed, uncover your lamp is what I mean. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about heaven here.
Yeah. So Peter, what was your book called? Because somebody
sure.
Go on Amazon. What, I've never actually seen your book.
Oh, look, it's invisible.
Yes.
There it is. Okay, I got it. It's way down here.
What is it called?
It's called Heaven is Beautiful.
Heaven is Beautiful. And
it's an Audible bestseller. I'm pretty happy about it.
Awesome. I love Audible. We both do.
Actually. Go get it. I have some credits I have to use. Amazon reminded me. So
that's cool. And then, you also do coaching. Just before we go, you help people. In what way do you coach people? How do you help them?
I think I'm more of a counselor and a guide and a reflector and a director, sort of, not like a director, but like a helper. I counsel people who have had mystical experiences, who don't know who else to talk to because it's such a taboo subject. And I have my grad degrees in the history of mysticism, and I have a life of contemplation. So I have skills that are practical. I did pastoral counseling for 30 years, but now I want to help people negotiate what happened to them.
That's awesome. Yeah. So anybody out there, you heard what Peter said. If you need any guidance, he does. What did you say? Your website was peter.love or?
Peter Panegore. My full name, Peter Panegore. .love.
I love it. Sure. Beautiful. Yeah. So from Ashley and I and Peter, we thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Namaste.
Namaste.
Yes.
You too.
Thank you so much. And I hope we'll do follow-up next year maybe, but we just want to thank you so much. It's such an honor to have you.
Ronelle, it's been really great to meet you both now twice, actually more in conversation. It's been really wonderful. I love what you're doing, and I hope that you keep getting the message out there to all these different people.
Thank you so much.